Look, I opened this jar of rotten baby food, and well, a butterfly came out.
I would say that the mudslinger, I don't think they would survive at all. Mudslinger today in cancel call. No way. There's no way.
Welcome to the Comedians and Elevators podcast. I've got my guest, Maja Ćirić. Maja, say hi, introduce yourself, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello, my name is Maja Ćirić. I'm a Belgrade-based independent curator and art critic. And I work in Europe and internationally. I have been educated in Germany and the United States and South Korea. I've been working in my art field all over the place. I work also as an exhibition reviewer for foreign international press and media, foreign and international media outlets. So the art world is my middle name. It's my playground and it's my home. But I'm tuning in from Belgrade, Serbia, Eastern Europe, south of Budapest, north from Athens, Greece. So.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a couple guests actually from same area. So that sounds like there's a lot of creative work going on. So you ready to get started? Huh?
I am ready to get started. Yeah, but the reason I did answer to your call was basically because I really don't know much about comedy. I mean, in theory, as an academic, as a person with a PhD in art theory, of course, I might know quite a lot, or quite enough, I would say, if I am to be a little bit more humble. But the thing is that you have challenged me, because really we should think of the world through the lens of comedy, and we don't do it as often as we would like to, So that's why I said, well, you gave me the questions. I was like, I have no one. I can't give any answer. Like, it's a challenge. So probably I should take part in this. So
Yeah,
it took
absolutely.
me a couple of weeks to figure out at least some basic answers. So yeah.
All right. Well, I appreciate you taking the challenge, and that's again why I reached out, to really expand everything. And I agree, comedy should be the spearhead. I do think that stand-up comedy is actually the pinnacle of performance. And so you may or may not agree with that statement, but that's my perspective. So
There
okay.
are some points that connect the two. Yeah.
All right.
Stand-up and performance, there are some similarities. Yeah.
Listen, to my regular listeners, I know you don't like when at the beginning of these conversations I ask you to subscribe. None of us like it. I don't like saying it. I don't like it being in here. But it's frustrating. You know what else is frustrating? It's also frustrating when I look in the back end of the YouTube channel and I see that 56% of you that watch frequently haven't yet subscribed. And I know this because I see it in the comment section. You say things like, I didn't know I didn't subscribe. And that's actually what fuels the show. Basically, it's like you're making a donation to the show. So that's why I ask all the time, because it enables us to build and build and build. And we're going for the long term here. Hit the subscribe button and we'll continue to build this show for you. That's my promise. Thank you to all you guys that do subscribe. It means the world to me. Okay, so the whole point of the podcast is to compare and contrast the comic versus the comedian. So I define the comic as any person telling funny jokes versus the comedian who's a funny person telling any jokes. So Maja, would you agree that you start as a comic and evolve into a comedian?
It's difficult because in my language, it is really hard to translate this too. So as an art curator, I would rather connect the comic with the visual and with the long-term practice, while a comedian would be something different. But let's go through the questions, and maybe I would, it was hard for me to make distinctions without these questions that you have raised. So maybe if we go question by question, I would be able to give you a more precise answer.
Absolutely. So the reason why I started the podcast is because this did make sense to me when I was first approached with it, with the idea that there is a difference between the comic versus the comedian. And it was in comedy clubs where the club owners and bookers want you to identify yourself as one or the other. You must identify. And so that's where it came from. So, okay. So the first question is about the role of persona in comedy. So how much of the comedian's voice is a character versus the real self?
So I guess the question that you're asking me, who's really talking?
Yeah.
So I would say that comedians love playing dress up with their own lives. And some of it's them and some of it's character, right? So the audience can tell the difference, and that's the magic, right? So who's more authentic? I don't think it's really relevant because it's the illusion that hooks you, the wind behind the punchline, the sense that maybe this person gets me. So real self or stage self, does it really matter if it makes you laugh?
Okay. So when you say if this person gets you, are you saying that from the perspective of the audience or the performer?
I would say from the perspective of the audience, And so your question is about the persona. So there is this, there's something that we call in theory the front stage identity work. So
Okay.
sometimes there is a little bit of a persona and there is a little bit of authentic real self, but it
Mhm.
really doesn't matter. The goal and the point of everything is just to make people laugh.
Well, so would that possibly be a nihilistic perspective? Like how would you use that as a tool if you were to recommend that as some kind of methodology?
Uh, I think you have to be aware as a person stepping out in front of the audience. You really have to be aware of the illusion and the possibility, like the potential of the illusion. So if the audience is seduced by the illusion that you make on stage, it really doesn't matter if it's half a persona that you imagine for the stage or half of a real persona. So
Okay.
it's not either or.
That's very interesting because a lot of the challenges for comedians that do the same routine repeatedly is that one night it works and one night it doesn't, and they don't know why, right? And so that becomes a challenge. So, do you have any recommendations of how to address that?
I guess one has to temp check the context.
Okay.
Like in art, context is everything. Every question that we raise, it's within a certain context. So you have to temp check.
Hmm.
And you
Okay.
really have to know how to get the message across. And in order to know how to get the message across, you have to have some sensibility for your audience.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to go too far. That's like a rabbit hole with question and answer. So I'll go to the next one. So punching up versus punching down. So where do comics versus comedians stand on this? And let me put it in some historical context. Did a jealous medieval prince become the first comedian by killing the court jester?
Hmm. Well, I guess I'm more in favor of punching up because punching up is always towards some powerful structure,
Mhm.
while punching down has to do something with the vulnerable structures of the
Mhm.
society or of humanity or any kind of community that you're addressing the punchline towards. So I think that power dynamics in comedy are everything, punch up, punch down, it's a classic, something that you have to count in. Like I know artists who made a career on punching down their own country. And
Mhm.
I mean, it helped them to make a career, but why would you punch your country in front of the other or your region in front of the more powerful? Um, Structures. So, it sells well. If you're punching down, that sells well because it's when you're punching down, you're of course more powerful than the one. When you punch up, you can get killed like the jester. Because
Yeah.
we don't know when at one point did we cross the line, and if the more powerful person will just get our like cut our heads.
So it's very interesting. You're mentioning
Beady, beady,
punching
beady,
down your own
beady.
country. Do you see that? I can see two versions. One, say maybe you're from, say, a third world country and you're punching down. That's definitely going a double negative. But what if you're in a first world country punching down? Is that is that dynamic a little more appropriate?
Um, it's tricky because the country is not what the country used to be, like even a more powerful country. There are so many multitudes within a country.
Mhm.
So it's a very vague question. And
Yeah.
what do you punch down, the government or the right wing part of the society, or like what the country stands? Yeah, you would have to tell me what the country stands for. If you're
Right.
punching the United States or one aspect of the United States or a third world country, But the thing is that whatever you do, if you punch up or punch down, you have to temp check the audience, because the audience is the main referee. They laugh with you, or that means if they laugh with you, that means that they're giving you permission, right? If there's no
That's
laugh, things
mhm.
are getting more serious. It's a
That's a good way to look
landmine.
at it. That's a
Yeah,
good way to look at it.
then the joke becomes a landmine. It's tricky.
It is. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
That's when you have
online
to. Uh-huh.
online everybody, like there are so many people throwing shade online, right?
Yep.
And you don't know if you should laugh or cry. Um, so as long as they're laughing, you're on the good side, even if it comes if we are dealing with a punching up, and punching down.
All right. Okay, so cultural translation of comedy. So how do jokes that work in one country bomb in another?
Hmm. As I already mentioned, the context is everything. Every question is asked uh, um, uh, within a context. So there are some jokes that are politically you can only recognize them within a certain country. They don't translate. They're really context responsive. And what kills in New York might bomb in Nairobi. So
All
so
right.
humor isn't universal. It's context, it's timing, it's shared knowledge and cultural inside jokes. It's
All right. So
complicated.
I have a new question for you. So that way you couldn't have prepared for this one. I replaced one of them.
It's
So
okay.
how does the silence when your joke doesn't land hurt? Physically, emotionally, or morally?
Um, I would say I wouldn't say physically. Um, I would say emotionally, but emotionally in the immediacy of that silence, but
Mhm.
morally in the long term.
Okay. Morally in the long term. So
Yeah,
so
if there's silence and you thought you were funny, something is wrong in the entire perception of the universe.
mhm.
So morally, you have to rethink your universe.
So I did choose morally for a particular reason. Would you do you like that as one of the options of as one of these answers to the question, or do you think there perhaps should be a different word?
Uh, I think what you're referring to is the ethics of comedy.
Yes.
You know, both like when it comes to comedy, ethics play a big role. So what's ethical and what's not ethical? So
Okay.
and sometimes, even if we refer to the pre-Second World War Germany, things that people said on stage, um, they were supposed to be laughed at, but in the end, there was just silence. So, and that was the announcement of a big problem in a society.
All right. Okay. So crowd work versus crafted work. So if comics riff like influencers in the comments section and comedians perform like in reaction videos, where's the sweet spot?
Hmm. Where's the sweet spot?
Hmm.
Well, I would say that crowd work is improvisation and crafted work is precision. So the
Okay.
sweet spot is structure that feels spontaneous. That's definitely a sweet spot. And chaos control just enough to make you look like a genius. So
Okay. Well,
crowd
that was a
work,
profound statement.
well,
Chaos
yeah,
control to make you look like a genius.
yeah. You know,
Okay.
as a comedian, you're in a way controlling chaos to some extent. Because first of all, when you step out, you have to attract all this attention towards yourself.
Okay.
It goes really, like, minutes go really slow when there is no response from the audience. So I would
Absolutely.
say that crowd work is riffing and reacting and reading the room. Would you agree with me?
I would.
Like,
It's interesting the way you're referring to it. So, um, I would just counter with when you have the mic, you have the talking stick, you have the microphone, and the audience does not. There is a focus on you on stage. So, I can see maybe that's a counterpoint to the chaos. Would you agree?
yeah, but if you do too much of a crowd work, that's chaos.
Okay.
You know?
Got it.
If you're too rigid with the crowd, that gets very boring.
Right. Okay.
So I
I'm
think balance is everything.
right. All right.
On
So, very important question: advertising and self promotion. Who advertises themselves more, the comic, the comedian, or the magician? You know that place where you're not conscious and you're not sleeping either? That's your power bill to the electric company. Right here. I want us to be here with free energy, where the Wardenclyffe Tower meets the Eiffel Tower. But that's not where we are. We are here, where you've got the utility and you've got residential solar. Between these two, we know which one saves you money. This is where we can go in the meantime. But this is where I want us to be now, and this can be done now. So let me deputize you to represent DOSE, Department of Solar Efficiency, and let's get on the podcast to get the message out today. See you soon.
I would say the magician, but only until social media leveled up the playing field. It was the magician, but now
Interesting.
there's a difference between comics and comedians, because comics, they quietly build a brand, while a comedian scream it from the stage, from the podcast. They scream. And self-promotion, am I accusing self-promotion? Not necessarily, because it's not selling out. Self-promotion, it's not selling out, because nobody's laughing if the audience doesn't show up.
That's a great, I mean, I can't disagree with that one, but you just be screaming into the void. Okay. Censorship and offense. So does a comic avoid offense while a comedian courts it to prove a point, like a magician?
Hmm. Well, here's where the lines blur. Comics often dodge offense. They are sly, they're waving jokes around them, right? While
Okay.
comedians, on the other hand, court it like magicians courting Abe. And it's sometimes to shock, sometimes to Abe, always to prove a point. So in cancel culture, the magician survives by spectacle. The comic,
Okay.
by being subtle. So I think that timing and finesse is everything.
Okay. So speaking of who survives better in a cancel culture environment, would it be the comic, the comedian, the magician, or the mudslinger?
Uh, I would say that the mudslinger, I don't think they would survive at all.
Okay.
Mudslinger today in cancel culture. No way. There's no way. And as I said, the magician survives by spectacle somehow. He might get canceled, but if the spectacle goes on by the sheer power of his magic, or their magic or her magic, the story goes on. He doesn't get canceled so fast. But yeah, and the comic, I don't think the comic would get into that kind of trap, because comics are very strategic.
All right.
Yeah.
Makes sense. So timing and delivery, science or art. So do comics rely more on structure and comedians more on rhythm and emotion?
I would say that comics are more structured. Yeah, definitely. They have to prepare setups, punchlines, precise scaffolding. So,
Scaffolding. Okay.
yeah.
All
So,
right. So we're talking about actually a set on stage.
no. Like
Oh.
metaphorically
Ah.
speaking, like cognitive scaffolding.
Okay. So what? So I'm sorry. I might obviously I missed it. So
Like
the
cognitive,
cognitive
like,
scaffolding. Right.
yeah,
But is it
cognitive
the rhythm and
scaffolding.
emotion that's your scaffolding?
No, even the meaning, because comedy in general, it tells you how everything is fragile. Vanity is fragile, ego is fragile, but also meaning is very fragile. So if a comic wants to be successful, they have to give you some hints. They have to prepare you cognitively
I
uh,
see.
to get there.
Okay. That's the
To
setup
get
to
the
the
joke.
joke. Right. You
Yeah,
want to have this, you want to have a setup, but you want surprise as well. So you do
yeah.
need to have some kind of cognitive dissonance. Otherwise, there will be no surprise. Would you agree?
Yeah, but at the same, so I would say it's ambivalent because there needs to be some kind of support, cognitive support, or at
Right.
least the understanding of where we stand
Right.
as a community, is our perception of reality. So I would say it's ambivalent. It's both the cognitive dissonance and the cognitive scaffolding.
Okay. All right. Okay. So
With
laughter. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
would say with comedians it's a little bit different, because
Okay.
they're drummers, they ride on emotion, on rhythm. So while comics, they really their middle name is structure. With comedians, it's flow.
Right. Okay.
So
So can there be a transition between the two? Can these two work together as the same person?
well, if a person can transition between a comic and a comedian, of course, yes. And people, they have different tactics and strategies how to succeed. So it would happen, and it happens very often, that a comedian has some aspects of the comic in their character, in
Right.
their attitude and in their performance.
Absolutely. Okay, so laughter versus applause. So are comics chasing laughs and comedians chasing applause breaks or a primetime Emmy that validate the message?
What would you say?
What would I say?
Well, yeah. Uh, like I would say that comics, they're in for a short win sometimes. They're like in for a simple laugh.
Hmm.
And comedians, I guess they can be less structural but more strategic. They're in for a long run. They're in for the grandeur, for the brand they're making, from performing one night after the other. They're more for the cultural resonance and Emmy nods. So I would
Okay.
say that the comics, they measure their success in decibels, and and the comedian measures the success in the cultural footprint.
How do you measure that, the cultural
Well,
footprint? How
like
do you?
aspirate, they aspire to measure it. Like the success of a comic can be measured short term, while the success of a comedian, it's like if you really make it big, you're gonna have a show on national TV or something.
Right. All right. So
But
comedy is commentary. Go
yeah.
ahead. I was going to say,
You go ahead on a second. We can continue with the second next
all right.
question.
So comedy is commentary. So when does a comedian cross into being a philosopher or a preacher?
I don't know. That's a really hard one. We can talk more about the philosophers and what were their thoughts on comedy. Um, from like ancient Greece and like, but like when does so for example, Plato would like and Aristotle and Plato, they were trying to figure out, is there something of a superior of superiority in comedy, or is a person who is performing a comedy more superior than the one that they're addressing their lines to. So I would say that, it's really a thin line. Every comedian and would like to think of themselves as some kind of priest, right? Because they would make you, they can make you believe something that cannot be, like they would make you believe into something that's not visible. But I don't know. This is a very, very difficult question, I would say.
It's the shortest question, and you made it into the most you captured the essence. I thought it was most people don't even understand it, but you've captured the essence in a point where it's grown beyond the scale of the question that I wrote. So thank you.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, because like not in philosophy, but like in
yeah.
it's
Actually,
not.
that's exactly what I would say. I'm following the MBTI, the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, and Carl Jung. The idea that comedy is in the subconscious and drama or tragedy is in the unconscious. Would you agree?
Well, yeah, from what I know from these disciplines, I would say so. But I think that, you know, you can think of philosophy in terms of comedy because it's tricky, because you deal with something more imminent, which is like either you make them laugh and their ribs hurt, either they're confused and they don't get you. So I think philosophy, only really successful comedians who they have a large and a big turnout to their performances, and we can track their performances like within throughout the period of a couple of years. We can figure out if there is some kind of philosophy behind it. But why people come to listen to them, because comedians, as I said, they make things visible that are otherwise invisible. They make you realize the truth, and they make you think of the world. They change your worldview. Suddenly you have an epiphany. That's why perhaps they like to think of themselves as a priests, because they can provoke an epiphany within the community that they are performing. Oh, there is a aha moment. Oh, I didn't think of that way, but now that I heard it on the stage, I changed my opinion about that phenomena.
Yeah, I think there's only a few that actually attempted and have succeeded. So yeah, I would agree with that. Okay, so Maja, are you ready to enter the multiverse?
The multiverse? What's the
Yeah.
multiverse?
The
Yeah.
multiverse is the simultaneity of all that is. Are you ready to enter?
Yeah, like are you talking about transurfing different realities?
Yes, I
There's,
absolutely am with my next question. I absolutely am.
okay, so let's go.
Okay, so board game Zoomcast, play versus performance. If comedy were a board game Zoomcast, are you competing as the colorist, adding tone, mood, and shading, or the Foley artist, building punchlines with soundscapes and timing?
It took me a while to figure out that one. But I would say, because comics, we can find their work in memes on TikTok, like even comics. So I would say that they thrive in vivid images, and that are orchestrated by subtle gestures and texts. While on the other hand, comedians, I think they play on the card of their aura, their oral presence. And so I would say comics, it's the images, and comedians, it's the oral spectacle. But
All
what's the
right.
best? I would say the best is a mix of both. Painted, I would say that painted loud enough to see and performed sharp enough to hear.
All right. I love it. All right. So, Maja, we have a tradition here on the Comedians in Elevators podcast where the previous guest asks a question for the next guest. And the previous guest was Steve Stanilis. And his question for you, Maja, is, if you were breaking into the business today as a comedian, what would be the easier transition? As yourself with a routine, or a character for the rest of your career, which you are known as?
So the first option is a character that transitions, right?
No,
Could you
you're so easier to you're becoming a professional. So how do you think it would be easier to be a professional as yourself with a routine, or building a character which you'll be known as for the rest of your career?
I would build a character, based on my myself, right? But with a couple of you provoked me because I like glitter and sparks, and like I like everything that's dazzling, and but like in the reality of the world without comics and comedy, and I don't think I would wear anything like sparkling every day, but as a character, definitely yes, yeah.
All right. Okay, so
if I were to perform a character, I would then like play that character and probably dress up every day like in shiny glitter. Yeah.
So you would live it off stage as well?
Not necessarily. As long as my stage persona has its own a life of its own, it's okay.
All right. All right. So last question, legacy. Who gets remembered? Will the comic's tight five survive time, or will the comedian's cultural point of view be more timeless?
It depends on who asked the question. If you are asked, for example, art historians, then it would be comics, because they like the images, they like the visual expression, so to say. So probably it would be comics. But when you ask people who are working in the broader field of culture, analysts of culture, then it will be a comedian, definitely. We all remember Charlie Chaplin, don't we?
Mm-hmm.
Who was in reality sometimes he was not as funny. I know some of the funniest person that I know, they're very sad actually and very dramatic in their personal lives. So Charlie Chaplin, also his private life and his stage persona or film persona, it's something completely different, Yeah. So I appreciate a lot the effort when it comes to comedy, because life often is not as comic as we would like it to be. So anyone who puts the effort into comedy, that's something I really appreciate. That's why I want to support you with my presence here.
Well, I appreciate it, Maja. So where can everybody find you online?
Well, on my Instagram handle is Maja Ćirić Curator. And on LinkedIn, as we met on LinkedIn, so it's easy. Or my website, it's majaćirić.com. You have all the details there.
Well, Maja, thank you so much for being my guest. And for everyone, please like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.
Thank you, Mr. Kissinger. Bye.
If you're interested in too much information like in the network state, or Mantipus the chicken shit, check out this video. Or is it this one right here? Well, either way. Lizard.